Jay Dow, alcoholic drug addict. The format for this meeting is a film speaker meeting for prison TV to carry the message of hope and recovery to incarcerated prison inmates. So tonight it's an honor of mine to introduce a good friend of mine who I was sponsoring, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago before he went to prison. One of the last times I saw him was in his driveway at his parents' house, and the look on his parents' faces were just really of terror. And I lost touch with him, and he went to prison for a few years and got out and called me. And this dude has hit the ground running. And he's living proof that this program works. You know, he sober 4 years, he came out, got a sponsor, got through the steps, sponsoring guys, started a CR meeting at his church. Like, he's all about it, man. And so please welcome my good friend Adam.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks, Jay. I'm truly honored to be here, and you know, it's by the grace of God that I'm able to stand up here in front of you guys and be able to give my testimony of hope. So with that, let's just get into it. I will let you know my sobriety date is August 5th, 2015. I've been sober 4 years and 4 months, like I said, by the grace of God. My story is kind of different in the beginning. I was raised in a Christian home. I had great parents who loved us, gave us anything we wanted. I was raised in church, and I had a really strict upbringing. You know, we weren't allowed to watch He-Man. We weren't allowed to watch Smurfs. I wasn't even allowed to say the word fart. You know what I mean? That's how I'm serious, right? We had to say toot. So, you know, like I had this, everything that my parents did raised me to be a successful individual. And it wasn't any of their faults that my path took a different route. But I never saw my parents drink. I never saw them intoxicated. I never saw them smoke a cigarette. But for me, those were the things that were missing in my life, right? So I was raised in church, but I always felt like I had a wild side to me. I always bucked the system. You know, I never wanted to follow rules, and I wanted to make my own rules. So it didn't take long, probably by about the age of 16, when I got a vehicle, I started partying. And it was light. I just started smoking pot with my buddies. And the first time I got high, I loved it, right? Because I could be somebody else. And I could be funny and outgoing. And I could make people like me. And so I smoked pot for a while, all the way up and through high school. And then towards the end of high school, I started getting into ecstasy, somas, Xanax. We went to Mexico. So my first time going to Mexico, we found somas. And I don't know if anybody knows what they are, but it's a muscle relaxer. And I didn't like alcohol because the first time I drank, I started throwing up profusely, you know what I mean? So my first experience with alcohol was terrible. So then when I found these somas, and I could get the same effect from the somas as I basically do from the alcohol, minus the hangover, I was in love. I thought this was it, you know what I mean? So that really began the problems in my life, I guess. And at that time, I'm at the end of high school, beginning of college, and somas are my everyday thing. I wake up in the morning and I take them for lunch. We used to eat and then take a bunch of somas and call them soma naps, you know, and then we'd crash out for a few hours. And then we'd wake up and take more. And, you know, it was impossible at that time in my life to realize that this was the beginning of this treacherous road that I'm about to go down and spiral out of control beyond belief. Because if I knew that, you know, maybe I would have stopped at that point. But I had no way of knowing. And I think it was God's plan, right? So I did it every day, those somas, and getting high and shaking, and to the point where I started having seizures in my parents' house. I'm still living at home. And in the middle of the night, my mom would hear this crash on the other side of the house, and she'd get up to see what it was, and then there I am, fell into my TV, and you know, back then they were tube TVs, so a 32-inch tube TV weighs a couple 100 pounds, right? It's not like knocking over your TV today. So it tore my entertainment center down, and you know, here's my mom seeing me on the floor, not knowing if I'm dead or what. So this went on for probably a couple years, and I would go to the hospitals, and I'd get these EKGs and these EEG readings of my brain, and they were saying I had seizures, but they didn't know why. And you know, this is the addict mind. I'm such a jerk, and I'm so selfish that I don't tell my parents that these seizures are from drugs, you know what I mean? That I'm getting high and then I'm seizing out. So in their mind, my poor parents are thinking, what's going on with our kid? You know, is he going to die? He's having these seizures. They can't figure it out. And they're worried to the point where my mom started sleeping on the floor in my bedroom to make sure that I didn't get up at night and seize out. And the whole time I know what I'm doing, right? That's how sick I am at this point. I'm early in my using. I'm already developing these type of actions to lie and to let my parents be in so much fear for their son. And I don't care, right? I don't care. I just want to keep getting high. So it continued for a while, up until the point my best friend through all of high school and college was a guy named Israel Morales. And one night, he ate somas with me a lot too, and one night we're all out partying. He wants to go home, so we drop him off at home, and we tried to get him to stay, but he didn't want to. He's all somaed out. He wants to crash, so we drop him off at home, and when we come home about 2 or 3 hours later, to Israel laying on the couch, purple, and he's got a Jack in the Box jumbo jack in his hand, and we knew immediately, because this has happened to him before. He'll eat while he's all somaed out, and he'll choke and he'll throw up. But usually he throws up, and you know, he rolls over and throws up, and then he's all right. Well, this time no one was home, and so he did throw up, and then he choked on his throw up, and he died. So when we came home, and of course we're all messed up and high on somas and everything, so I can barely walk, but my first reaction is to pick him up, to try to make him throw it up or figure out what's going on with him. And his dead weight of his body I couldn't hold, and I dropped him, right? And his head hits the corner of the coffee table, and it's a loud thump. And so now I'm freaking out that I just killed my best friend, you know what I mean? So that is the exact point in my life, and I'll remember that day forever, that my drug addiction went from not realizing to the first heavy downward slope. That's when things really started to progress, because he died, and me and his brother held ourselves responsible for so long, and I didn't know how to deal with that, and I wasn't prepared to deal with it, and I don't think I tried to deal with it either, except to just keep getting high. So he left his brother a lot of money. He was in the military, and so his brother got a huge settlement. And instead of honoring him in any good way, we went to his funeral high on somas. We buried him with a bag of somas. That was kind of like our way of dealing with it, I guess. And so with all that money, his brother Peter bought a house, bought a BMW, and we continued to party. And I got to a point where somas were just getting boring, right? We always want to get to that next step. So Percocets came around, and I wasn't on Percocets for very long. And then we were introduced. We had a guy living with us, one of our friends from high school, and he's kind of a jokester, and he'd always walk around the house and say, "Yo, I got that black, man, I got that black." And I just always thought he would, you know, he was kind of off anyway, so I never really understood what he was saying until one day I'm like, "Dude, what are you talking about? You got that black." You know, and so he showed us, and we tried it, and that's when I really felt at ease. You know what I mean? That was the day that just everything kind of answered itself, and I had no idea what was coming. I'd never seen heroin, I'd never seen methamphetamines, I'd never seen any of these crazy hard drugs like that, and I knew nothing about addiction. I knew nothing about withdrawal, because you don't deal with that with somas and smoking weed. So I used it every day. Every day we'd smoke heroin. And it got to the point where I started isolating, where I stopped calling my parents, and I stopped showing up at my friends' houses, and we just stayed in that house, and we never left, and we smoked. And then my first experience with feeling those withdrawals, I had a really close friend that I had stopped hanging out with because I was getting high, and he said, dude, come over, please, come hang out for the weekend. And I did. I went over there, and I didn't bring any heroin because I don't want anyone to know that I'm smoking some nasty stuff off of foil, right? It's embarrassing. So I went over, and we hung out, and later that night I started getting sick. I started feeling these cold sweats and like this achy feeling, and I'm trying to figure out, dude, what's going on with me? What's wrong? And I remember somebody telling me about withdrawal, but I never seen anybody or experienced it. So immediately I thought, oh my gosh, so this is happening. So I made up some stupid excuse, and I told him, I gotta go, man, I'll come back later. And I went, and I got high, and sure enough, that sick feeling went away, right? And at that exact point, I knew one of two things. Well, I knew I was screwed, right? But I knew I could either reach out to somebody like my parents, people who really care, or my friend who I'm hanging out with, and try to get this help that I need, or just to keep going. But I'm so new to this, and I don't even, it doesn't even flip into my mind. I just keep going. I'm afraid to ask anybody for help. Like, what am I gonna say? I'm smoking heroin, you know what I mean? And I need to find some help. I knew nothing about AA or these rooms, so my solution at the time was to just keep getting high, and I'd figure it out at some point. And so I did, and things progressively got worse. I started smoking. I started showing up at my parents' house a little bit more. Me and Peter ended up having a big fight, and I moved out, and I moved back home. So now I'm back at home, and I still got to get high, so I'd go to our side yard, and I'd smoke weed on the side yard. My mom owns a daycare and a preschool out of her home, so it always made it hard, you know, because I didn't want like her to see. I didn't want the daycare parents to find out. I didn't want anybody to know, period. But so one day I'm smoking on the side yard, and there's two fences to my side yard, to the backyard and to the front yard. And so my mom would come around the backyard and spy on me through the fence, the gate, you know, to see. And I had no idea. And so I go inside, and she's crying in the kitchen. And I just remember her face. She's just bawling. And I said, what's wrong? What did I do? Why are you crying? And she says, I seen you on the side yard smoking on the foil. Oh, dude. And today it makes my heart drop, you know what I mean? But then I didn't care. Again, I'm high, and my first reaction was to say, Mom, it's just hash, because they knew I smoked weed. Mom, it's just hash. You smoking on the foil because that's just how you do it. So stop worrying. What is your problem? You know what I mean? You know, and I had the nerve to get mad at my mom for caring about me. And so, you know, I don't think she believed it, but I think at this point, this was the beginning of the family issues of my addiction. She was so naive to it. I just think she, you know, we just kind of carried on. And my addiction progressed, and instead of smoking on the side yard now, I would just stay in my vehicle, and I'd get high, and then I'd come home. And when they'd go to bed, I'd lock my door, and I'd get high in the room. And I'm thinking I'm slick, and they have no idea what's going on, but they do. Not only them, but my uncle and aunt, who were like second parents to me, and my cousins, who were like my brothers, and their wives. And everybody starts seeing this change in me, and they start seeing that I'm losing weight, and I'm losing the color, and I'm losing this charisma that I would usually walk around with. So one day I come home. I don't even remember where I was coming home from, but I knew that wherever I was getting high. And I had Xanax in my pocket, and I walk in the door. First of all, I pull up, and I see all the cars, and I know my family's vehicles, so I know everyone's there, and it's not a special occasion. So I knew something was up, man. And gosh, so I walk in, and there they are, all sitting on the couches in a circle, intervention style. And they say, Adam, and there's a seat right there in the middle, and I know that's my seat. And they say, Adam, come have a seat. And I said, hold on, I got to use the bathroom so bad. So my sick mind, here I go again, dude. I'm so messed up here. I go straight to that bathroom, and I bust out those 2 Xanny bars, and I crush them up, and I snort them. That way I know I don't have to feel anything in this stupid intervention they want to have. Because I don't have a problem, right? They're the ones that got it wrong. I'm okay. They just think that I'm ruining my life, but I've got it together. So I go and I sit down, man, and I just, every single one of the women, I don't think my dad or my brother or my cousin Scotty, I don't think they were crying, but every single one of the women were crying, and they had these long, heartfelt letters. Dude, and I was just able to look every single one of them in the eyes and not shed a tear. And it was just like I wasn't hearing anything they had to say. And at the end, the only way that I got to live in that house was to go to Crossroads and complete a 126-day program. And so without hesitation, I signed it. I said, yeah, for sure, you guys. Yeah, I want to get help. Yeah, let's do this. But I didn't want to. But I wanted to please my parents because, you know, they've done everything for me. And I wanted them to feel that this was going to be okay. So I signed it, and I went to Crossroads East. And, well, I made it 2 days. Really a day and a half. And I took off. And one of the house managers there, who now runs Crossroads East, at the time he was just a house manager. And I took off, left all my stuff there and took off. And I come back like 3 or 4 days later to pick up my stuff and my cart. And this man who runs the place was the house manager, and he gave me my bag. He said, I had to bag all your stuff up, man. Here it all is. And my cart and cigarettes weren't in there. And I blamed him. Dude, you're such a dirtbag, bro. You stole my cart and the cigarettes? You're just such a, you know what I mean? And here I am, like, high, lying to my parents, getting high, not being truthful with them, and I've got the nerve to call this other dude who's a house manager and doing the right thing a dirtbag for stealing my cart and cigarettes. So again, that's just the delusion, right? So anyway, that was my first experience with Crossroads. And my mom knew one of the guys higher up in there. They went to church together. So she was able to get me in. And I got kicked out, and they got me back in. And I went another couple days, and I got high there. And I got caught, and I got kicked out. And every time I got kicked out of that place, I would tell my parents that it was their fault. It was Crossroads' fault. They didn't like me, or they didn't want me there, or they had something out against me, you know what I mean? But it was never my fault for getting kicked out of a place of recovery. Why are they going to kick you out because they don't like you? They don't care if, you know, who you are or what you're doing. They want you to get sober. They don't care about your personality. If you can follow the rules and take some suggestions from them, you're going to stay, you know what I mean? But my parents, again, they're naive, so they kind of had my back. So 2 times at Crossroads East and got kicked out, and they told me, you can't come back here, but you can go to Crossroads Arcadia. It's brand new, and they have a right track program there. So I went. I didn't really have a choice, because my parents weren't letting me come back home, and I had nowhere to go, right? But I didn't want to get sober. So I go to Crossroads Arcadia, and I get into the right track program, and like, mind you, I guess I should have said this before, I lived in a lot of judgment against addicts. When I first got into these rooms and I saw these people, and I said, and I just remember thinking this, I still have my shoes on my feet, and I've got teeth in my mouth. How am I like these people? Right? That's what I said. How am I like these guys are just, they're down on themselves. They're never going to get back up because they want to call themselves a freaking addict every day, and they're never going to get better. Right? So I stayed on that, and sometimes I would even go to these meetings just so I could build a way in my head to prove these idiots wrong. You know what I'm saying? I didn't. I'll promise you that. I did not prove them wrong. So at Crossroads Arcadia, I did the same stuff. I got high there. I didn't take the program serious enough. And I didn't find a sponsor. I didn't work any steps. And I got high, and I slept, and I ate. And one day they called me in for a drug test. And I'm very manipulative. Very manipulative. So They got me waiting in the room to pee, and I convinced them that I need to go into my room and grab something. I don't even remember what it was. But I got out of that room. I got one of my roommates to pee in a nose spray bottle for me, and I went back in, and I used that fake pee, and I passed the test. But the guy that ran that one, Joe, he, I don't even know if he's with Crossroads anymore, but he was like, dude, I don't care what that test says, Adam. You were here getting high, people saw it, and I'm kicking you out. And I said, dude, you can't kick me out. I passed the drug test. What are you talking about? You're kicking me out. So he did, and again, I told my dad, these guys, this place is full of, you know what? I passed the drug test, and they want to kick me out. You know what I mean? This recovery stuff is just ridiculous. These people don't know what time it is. So and then again, my poor naive dad. I put my parents through so much, and they are the greatest people in the world, but they just never wanted to give up on me, you know. And so my dad says, "All right, dude, well, let's go. Let me call one other place." So I go to Crossroads Midtown. So mind you, I've lived at all the Crossroads in Arizona multiple times. So now I go over to Crossroads Midtown, and bottom line is I kept doing all the same things. I kept getting high there. Crossroads Midtown is where I found bath salts, and I stayed up for 4 days straight on bath salts in my room, and I had never even tried methamphetamines, right? So bath salts was like my first introduction into uppers like that, and I came home. There are 2-man rooms at Crossroads Midtown, so me and my roommate had kind of gotten in. We had been up for 4 days doing bath salts together, and so he's tripping, and he's thinking that I'm telling on him, so I come home from Crossroads, and he's in the office with the big bosses, and I don't know what he has said, but they want me to pee, you know? And I was like, all right, we'll go through this again. I know I can pass a drug test right now because I'm on bath salts. When's it going to show up, you know? But they didn't even let me pee. They just finally said, you know what, dude, you got to go. And my dad picked me up. And so by now, my parents are pretty irritated because they're seeing this pattern. They're seeing this pattern of me getting kicked out of these places, coming up with some outlandish excuse. And now my dad's like, okay, this is like number 6. You're telling me everybody likes you, Adam, and all of a sudden you're telling me all these places seem to hate you and they want you gone? So he's like, I'm taking you home, but you're not staying there long. So I get home, and my mom's not. She's in her room. She don't even want to see me or talk to me. And so let me back up. I'm sorry. Let me just back this up. When I had that intervention, and I signed I had to actually sign a physical contract that said I would go and complete this 126-day program. And then that contract was framed with my signature in my room, and I came home from Midtown, and the contract was ripped into a million pieces and thrown on my bed. And I knew my mom had done it, you know what I mean? And so, and I was somewhat sober. I was sober enough to feel that pain. Like, I've never wanted to let my mom down because I've been closer to my mom than any other person in the world, you know what I mean? So for her to rip that contract up and me not even see her when I came home, it broke my heart. It just broke my heart, but it didn't break it enough for me to get sober. You know what I mean? It still wasn't enough for me to care. So I don't even remember where I stayed that night, but I remember the next couple days trying to get into Maverick House. And Maverick House is a 30-day inpatient program. And it's like I kept just going from all these different places because my parents wanted me to. But I couldn't figure out in my head, like, why didn't I want this? I was sick of getting high, you know what I mean? I was sick of the struggle of trying to find the dope and not to, you know, you only get high for like 6 months and then you're just smoking to get well. And I just wish I could find a way to have the enthusiasm that they did for my recovery because I couldn't find it. And I just couldn't see it, and I didn't want to admit that I was an addict like these other people who were just so down on life. You know what I mean? Because that's how I wanted to see them. They're not down on life. You know what I mean? People who are sober and in recovery love life every day, but I couldn't see it that way because I wasn't loving life. So So I got into Maverick House, and I did the same thing. They strip search you there, and I snuck in some heroin, and I got high in the bathroom, and I was, you're inside, so you don't get to leave or nothing. So, you know, they keep an eye on you, and there's cameras everywhere, and I'm in this bathroom for probably 45 minutes until the guy comes knocking on the door. Hey, open this door right now. And finally I put everything away, and I opened it up, and he's like, I need to search you. And, you know, so I was in Maverick House for 12 hours and got kicked out. And at this point, I'm too ashamed to call my parents or to go home or to even let them know what's going on. So I called up a friend, I got picked up, and I went and stayed with these, you know, with my heroin friends. I called them friends at the time, but, you know, they weren't. And I stayed out for about another 3 months. My parents, I finally called them, and they had already known that I wasn't there anymore. And they knew what I was doing, and you know, I just told him, I said, I'll get this figured out. I'll get this figured out. Can I come home, get some food, get some clothes, and then you can bring me back over here? And my dad said, yeah, I guess you can. So I came home, and I got food, and I got clothes, and I kind of said, like, I love you guys, and, you know, I got to go. And my dad takes me and drops me off at my buddy's house. And I've never seen my dad cry, ever. And he hugs me, and he just starts bawling. I mean, he's shaking, you know, and he said, man, Adam, I just want you to figure this out. Please get back to Maverick House. But I didn't. I did eventually, but at that exact moment, I didn't, because I wasn't done getting high, you know what I mean? And I had these cool friends who, we had some cool connects and hookups and ways to get cash so that we could get high. So why am I going to stop? I don't even have to worry about getting sick right now. That's how my brain works, you know what I mean? And so it all ran out, and about 2 months later, I finally went back to Maverick House. My parents let me come home with a couple Suboxone and detox in my bedroom, and then I went to Maverick House. And I made it. I made it all the way through the program, 30-day program. I made it through. I got my certificate. My parents would come occasionally and visit me and bring me cigarettes and sodas. And the day that I left, they all showed up, and they were so happy to pick me up. And I looked good, and I felt good, and I'm clean. You know, and I've kind of got like a right track this time. Dude, I don't know what happened still to this day, but my uncle comes over the day I get home to congratulate me, and he takes me over to his house to do some work to get paid. And he pays me, and then I lie to him and tell him to drop me off at my sponsor's house because I'm going to a meeting. I had him drop me off at the Dope Man. 30 days, dude. I made it through. I was good. I didn't have to go back. I wasn't sick. You know what I mean? But it's that mental obsession. I just thought, man, now I know how to get high. If I got high for 3 days and then I didn't get high for 3 days, and I could keep this flow going, then I'd never have to withdraw. And my parents would never have to know, you know what I mean? And I could live in this lie that I love. But it didn't work like that. And my grandma died, and she left all 4 of her grandkids $17,000, and everybody else got the money except for me. My Uncle Norm said, I'm going to hold this money, and when you need some, you come to me, and I'll pull it out for you, but we just don't feel comfortable giving you the money. And so I would go to him twice a week with some kind of crazy ass, I need $500 for this, I need $800 for this. And, you know, it was my money, so he wasn't going to tell me no, but he knew that I was getting high. And she gave me her car also. That was one thing that she left to me, and no one else was her car. And so I had the car, and I had all this money, and I just ramped right back into my addiction. And I started smoking meth at this time, too, because now I can afford so much heroin that I'm nodding out all the time. And I don't want to nod out. Like, I don't want to miss any of this experience. So now I'm smoking meth to stay awake just enough that I can smoke more heroin. And when I start to get tired again, I just smoke some more meth. And so that was my new routine. And now I'm really on fire, dude, because I don't have to go to sleep. You know what I mean? I can be high all the time and party, and I don't have to sleep now. I got the best of both worlds, uppers and downers, all arounders. And yeah. But dude, it spiraled out of control even more with that. And I got to the point that money was gone before I knew it. And I had crashed that car my grandma gave me twice. And I used to use a torch, a big butane torch, because now I'm not smoking heroin on the foil. I got one of those bongs with the dabber, and I'm smoking bong hits of it now. And I'm not telling you guys this to brag, but I'm going to explain. It brought me to such a more elevated high that I'm nodding out. I've got burn marks all over my car because I nod out with the torch in my hand. And I've just trashed this car that was given to me. It was in great condition. And my bed, I was staying at some, crazy dope house, and now I'm nodding out on my bed. I got all these burn holes in the mattress. It's crazy looking the way that my life is, and I'm okay with it. But everything's got burn holes around it because of this freaking butane torch, you know what I mean? But to me, it's normal. Like, how is that normal? But it was, because I'm sick in the head, dude. And so anyway, the money ran out real quick. And I'm going to try and wrap this up so I can get to the good stuff. What do we have till? 9 o'clock?
5 till.
Okay, so anyway. So now I'm shoplifting. And I think I got it figured out because my buddy had ordered one of those magnetic things that unlocks the thing, or the spider thing that goes around the electronics. He's got one of these magnet things that unlocks it all. So I think I got it figured out, and I'm tweaking, and I'm high, and I'm in Walmart, and I'm unlocking everything I possibly can, right? Anything that's electronics that's expensive and it's got one of them things on it, I'm unlocking it, and I'm putting it in my car, thinking that I just look like a shopper, you know what I mean? But I'm doing this for 2 hours. I'm in this Walmart doing this, and they're watching me the whole time. And by the end of the whole thing, I got this shopping cart full of all these cool electronic stuff, and I get nervous. So I leave it all, and I just take these headphones, and I take the headphones, and I put them in my pocket, and I bounce with a pair of $20 headphones. And the dude picks me up. As soon as I get out that door, that dude's there. Hey, man, what'd you put in your pocket? Let me see it. And he tells me, hey, come inside here, fill out some paperwork, and I'll let you go. I won't call the cops. Oh, this guy's all right, dude. He's going to let me go. I freaking go in there, and 10 minutes later, the cops are there, you know what I mean? And they arrest me, and they take me to Scottsdale jail. And so my car gets impounded, and I'm in Scottsdale jail. I don't want to call my parents. I'm not calling my parents. I call one of my drug dealers, and he's like, all right, well, when you get out, I'll come pick you up. So I'm like, cool, man. 24 hours later, I get out of Scottsdale jail. I'm hitting him up. He's not answering. I call a taxi. I wait like 10 minutes because I'm withdrawing on heroin right now, and I haven't really had to withdraw too much. So I'm freaking out. You know what I mean? The taxi don't show up in 10 minutes, so now I'm getting real pissed off. Excuse my language. Sorry. And I'm irritated, dude. And I'm like, my boy won't answer the phone. So my solution was to go across the street. And mind you, I had Superman red hair with a black stripe right here because I thought that was cool. Okay, my hair was always dyed some kind of crazy color. And it's Superman red right now. And I'm just out of Scottsdale jail. And I go across the street, and there's a car running in the parking lot. And I walk around and make sure there's not a kid inside because I've got morals, you know what I mean? I'm not going to steal a car with a kid in it, but I will steal it. And there's no kid in the car. I lift the handle up, and it's unlocked, and it's running, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I got all this rush. I get in, and it's a stick shift, and I can drive stick shift, no problem. But it's got a custom shifter on it, so it doesn't show the shift pattern. I've never been. It's a Chevy Cobalt. So I'm in there, and I'm like, trying to find reverse, and right in front of me is the store where the dude who owns the car is inside of it. Finally, I get in reverse right as he's coming out, and I take off, and I just start driving, dude, and I'm just, all of a sudden, I'm not even withdrawing at this point because my adrenaline is pumping so much, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I got a car. Dude, this is so cool. I'm going through it, and I see 9mm bullets in the center console. I'm like, oh, now I got a gun, and I open up, and it's like this really nice Glock 19, and it's all military decked out, and it's got the crimson laser sights on it, and this thing is just all done up. So I'm starting to think, this guy, I might have just got a good car. And I'm going through everything, and no lie, in the side I find 2 prescription bottles, one with Percocet 30s, and the other one with diazepam, Valiums. So I pull over, boom, I snort a couple of those so that I'm not withdrawing. And I see his iPhone in the center. I throw the iPhone out the window, and I drive to my dealer's house where I was staying at the time. And I'm banging on the door, and I'm like, dude, check this out. You didn't want to pick me up, so I got all this cool stuff, you know. What can I get? You know, type of thing. And he's like, dude, get inside. And he's like, we need to go check the car. And I hadn't looked in the trunk or nothing else, you know what I mean? And we go down there, and I pop the trunk, and it's got all this military stuff, and it's got 2 body armor, ballistic plate vests, and a Kevlar helmet, and 2 AR-15s. All military, and it's got, I think the total was 17 banana clips of .223 rounds. All in this dude's car. And so now I'm like, honestly, I'm kind of scared, but I'm excited at the same time because this is going to sell for good money. And I'm going to get a lot of dope. You know what I mean? So I'm good. And it does. And I got a lot of dope. And within 30 minutes, detectives are at my parents' house asking, where is Adam Jermoth? He just stole a car, a military vehicle with a lot of weapons in it. We need to know where he is right now. The camera, which I was looking at while I stole the car, I just figured, oh, this thing ain't working at an old gas station. It's just up there. Well, it worked, and it got me on camera, and they put an APB out for me, and Scottsdale Jail replied immediately with someone who, because the APB says a guy with bright red hair in this area, and Scottsdale Jail replied immediately, oh yeah, we just released Adam Jermoth, matching that description exactly. So my mom texts me, she says, the detectives are at the house, they say you stole a car, I hope it's not true. And I text her back, of course it's not true. You know what I mean? Yeah, Mom, come on. They're setting me up. Everyone has been setting me up for the past, I don't know how long, right? And so they eventually realized how serious this was and that the cops weren't going away. They kept coming back. About 3 weeks go by and I call my dad. I said, and meanwhile, the reason I stole the car is because they impounded mine and I didn't have a vehicle. Right? So they get the car, but nothing, they didn't get me in the car, or they didn't, and me and my dad 3 weeks later at the impound lot, he pays for my car to get out of impound. I think my parents were just so desperate, they were just willing to go to any lengths for my sobriety because I wasn't willing to go to any lengths for my sobriety, so we thought maybe I'll just get the car out and I can get him into Solutions. He pays $600 for the car, and we're waiting in the yard for like 25-30 minutes. And my dad's like, Adam, I got a bad feeling about this. And I got my vape in my hand that's full of heroin and I'm smoking it. Yeah, Dad, yeah, me too, man. It's cool, it's cool. And all of a sudden, 6 SUVs come rolling in, lights on. They bust out of the car and they've got assault rifles on me. Get on the ground, you're under arrest. And my dad, I just look at my dad and he's standing like this, not sure what's going on. Right? And my first reaction, I've got at least 6 guns on me and 1 lady cop yelling at me with a pistol. I grab my chrome vape out of my pocket to get one last hit of that heroin before I go to jail. Remember, because I'm sick in the mind. So I almost lost my life that day because she said, sir, I will shoot you. Because they just see this chrome thing coming out of my pocket. And they're already thinking that I'm some kind of crazy guy because I stole a military vehicle with weapons and guns. And they checked my Facebook page and it had all these different anti-government and anti-military quotes and stuff on there. So in their heads, I'm a domestic terrorist. And when I get arrested and she tells me how close she was to shooting me, and I see the detective, he's got this wanted sign in the Scottsdale Jail interrogation room. And it's got 3 different pictures of me with different color hair. And it says, armed and dangerous, wanted for anti-government tendencies. So this whole time, I'm just thinking they thought I stole a car, but what they thought is that I was getting ready to start some crazy stuff, you know what I mean? Judging by my Facebook page and the vehicle I stole, not knowing that I just randomly stole that car. I had no clue what was in it, you know what I mean? So that's it. I got put into jail, and I got released on felony probation, on felony release, right? Because they didn't have enough evidence to get me for the other things. Because meanwhile, I was stealing microphones. I kind of left this out, but I was stealing. Another way we got money is I would go to I'm a sound guy. I run sound for concerts and corporate events, and I hadn't been working for so long, but I knew at all the resorts there's corporate events going on. So there's always wireless microphones and sound gear. And I would go in with just like black clothes like a sound labor guy would do, and I'd steal all those microphones, and I'd get like $2,000 a piece for them. So I'd hit all these resorts. So they were building all these cases on me for these microphones. And then when I stole that vehicle, I think they just said, you know what, let's just get everything together and charge him. So they picked me up a month later after I got released on the felony release. I was at the dope man buying dope, and they pulled me over. And that was the last day that I would spend outside of jail. I got arrested. I had 2 cases. I had the theft of means charge, and I had the one resort for stealing the microphones. While I sat in county jail, I got page 2 4 more times, so I had a total of 5 cases. 4 different F2s for stealing those wireless microphones. And even the ones that I didn't steal, that I had someone else steal for me, they charged me with them because they said that I led the whole thing and that I got those people to steal them. So I've never been to jail before, never been into Durango before. This was my first time. And I'm withdrawing on heroin, and I'm withdrawing bad now because I have been having money. And dude, that was it. That was like, I found myself alone for the first time, you know what I mean? And I really started reflecting on what am I doing with my life, you know what I mean? And that was my moment of clarity. That's when I decided to get sober. So I went into prison August 2nd, or I went into jail August 2nd. I call my sobriety date August 5th because I took like 3 days of just being in such a haze that, you know, for reality to set in, it took about that long. So that's why I call that my date. But it was hard because, you know, I wanted to tell my parents that I'm done and that I'm ready and, you know, help me. But now I'm in jail and I feel like it's too late. I've never been in jail before, so I'm scared and I'm alone. And all I can do is talk to them over the phone. And, you know, they're not really trying to hear it right now. So my public defender comes and she tells me, I'll be happy to get you under 15 years. And I froze and I said, that's not acceptable. I can do a year. See what you can do about that. You know what I mean? and she wasn't having it. And by the grace of God, she had to drop me for some kind of conflict. And I got appointed an actual attorney pro bono to do my case. And so my parents, I had a $30,000 bond. And I begged my dad, Dad, I can't fight my case in jail. You know, I'm just going back to my old addict thinking, trying to get out so I can get high. I can't fight my case in jail, Dad. The judge is going to see me in these stripes, and he's not going to give me any kind of leniency. I need to be able to dress nice and go to court with you guys. And there's my parents again. They love me so much. They actually called to pay that $30,000 bond. But it wasn't God's plan because I had another case, that theft of means, that I was non-bondable on. So it just worked out. So I spent 6 months in county jail. I spent the first 2 months sick, throwing up. I had a bag tied to my bunk, and I just lean over and throw up in it. I had this throw-up bag just sitting in there for days and days until somebody would change it for me because I'm too sick and no one's getting me up to change it, right? So they would change it for me. And I spent 6 months in county jail getting all those cases dialed in, and my first plea was 8.5 calendar years consecutive. No early time, no 85%. And I told him, I said, dude, I still can't sign that. Like, there's got to be something better than me spending 8.5 years in prison for the stuff that I've done. I'm sorry, you know what I mean? And I want to change my life. And this time I really meant it, but, you know, sometimes it's just a little too late, at least for the justice system. And so I finally got a plea. I got a 5-year plea. I actually got 2 sentences. I got a 5-year and I got a 3.5 year. So all they did was they took that consecutive sentence and they let me run it concurrent. But I didn't know it at the time, but that was the best thing that ever happened to me. God took me out of society and he put me in jail and he sent me to prison because I couldn't figure myself out here and I couldn't get sober. And it didn't matter what it took out here on these streets at that time in my life, I could not get sober. So God put me in prison because he wasn't done with me. He wasn't going to let me die on the streets from drug overdose. So he put me in prison, and that's where my life changed. I stayed away from all drugs in prison, and I came back to church, and I started playing piano. I started a worship band in church, and so I started getting all this equipment donated, and my parents bought a keyboard for the prison so that I had a piano to play in prison, and I started a worship band, and I started getting other people involved with it, and before I knew it, I ended up doing 4 years and 2 months on the same yard, small yard, 500 people, but it was a blessing in disguise. A lot of people don't say this, but I loved every day that I was in prison. I'll say it again, I loved every day that I spent in prison because I found myself in prison. You know what I mean? I became this man of God that I was always supposed to be, and I finally got to see God's true purpose for my life, and I found it in prison. And I got to play piano every day. I got to work outside the gate, so for 8 hours I wasn't even in prison, right? And I was just blessed in there, and my parents were so happy to finally see their son sober. They came and visited me twice a month for the whole 4 years I was down. And I just seen this glow on their face, you know what I mean, that they got their son back. And so I knew as I got closer to my exit date, I started building a plan of recovery. There wasn't much recovery as in AA or NA inside at that small yard, but I knew recovery because my parents had planted the seed, and people like Jay Dow and Robert Mosbach, who were my sponsors, they planted the seed, you know what I mean? And I'd known Jay Dow. He was my sponsor while I was still getting high and screwing up, and he knew my parents, and you know, we kind of had this relationship, and but I wasn't ready for him, you know what I mean? All that stuff he was talking in my ear, I wasn't trying to hear it. And we used to even go to this meeting. It was a backyard meeting at this dude Matt's house, right? And one night I just remember I was nodding out. I remember my phone hitting the ground. I picked it up, and he drops me back off at Crossroads West, and he says, "Hey, let me ask you something, dude. Were you high at that meeting?" And my first response to him was like, "Dude, no, I wasn't high at that meeting." And I built a resentment towards him because, like, how dare this man, my sponsor, accuse me of being high at a meeting that I was high at, right? But that's why I love this man, dude. So I knew as I was getting ready to get out of prison what I was going to do. Jade, I was going to be the first person I'd call because I knew he was solid. And my mom had spoken to him off and on while I was in prison. And I knew he was doing the deal because he was doing the deal 5 years ago when I was trying or not trying to get sober. So I got out of prison, dude, and I called him immediately, and I got a sponsor, and I picked up a big book. And let me just say, anybody in this room who does not have a big book, if they don't have one here for you, come see me after the meeting, and I will bring you a big book next Sunday. Okay, and I mean that. I don't care if there's 20 of you. If you don't have a big book, and they don't have one for you, I will buy you one and bring it on Sunday, okay? So see me after the meeting. But anyway, that's what I did. I started following the 12 steps. I took some suggestions. I stepped out of my comfort zone, and I listened to somebody else for once. And today my life is amazing. Me and my family, we run a Celebrate Recovery at Calvary Phoenix, the church I was raised in. I play on the worship team for Calvary Phoenix at both their campuses. I play in a worship team for my Celebrate Recovery band. I work with all guys in recovery. My boss has 10 years sober. We're electricians. We have a blast all day at work. We post goofy Facebook photos and videos of us working with just stupid stuff because we're sober and we're all in recovery and we just have a time of our lives. So God has truly blessed me today, and it took me about 6 years to figure out what my purpose in life was, but here I am today, living proof that this works, man. So like I said, get a big book, get a sponsor, work these steps and save your life, man. I promise you everything will just turn out the way you want it to. And with that, I'll pass. Thank you.